Can we have a quick recap of what we did last class? Like anyone? Emmanuel, can you help us with that?
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yeah, I wasn't there in last class, but I've watched the recap video. I think we talked about test design techniques.
Okay.
We talked about test plan,
Yeah.
the types of test plan,
Explain. Yes.
yes, and did some classwork.
Yes, exactly. All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, Blessing. What are the types of test plan? If you can remember, you can mention one. Hi,
Now
Blessing.
we talked about the master test plan.
The master test plan.
Mm, and level specific test plan.
Yeah, the specific level test plan.
Yeah, we
Okay.
did that.
Okay. So yes, we talk about the testing design techniques. Thank you very much, Blessing. Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Christina, can you help us with any recap from last class before we proceed? Good evening, Christina. Christina, can you confirm if you can hear me? All right. So we can proceed with the class, right? So we talk about test plan, like test plan, the definition of test plan and the types of test plan. We have the master test plan and we have the level specific test plan also. We have the specific test plan. So and we have test attributes like what is expected to be in your test plan, like the introduction section, how it should be structured. We have the other sections also. So that's just like a recap of what we did last class. I will be sharing my screen now. And please confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Emmanuel. So today we'll be talking about test design techniques. Last class we said we have two types of test design techniques. We have the test plan and we have the test case. So last class we talked about the test plan, and today we are going to be talking about test case. So we're going to be talking about what is test case, what are the attributes of test case, like what should be included in the test case. And we'll be having like a practical example of how a test case should be structured, right? So today we are going to be talking about test case, as I've said earlier on. And test plan, don't forget that in our test plan we have a field, like we have a field for a test case. Like we will need to add our test case to our test plan. And today we are going to be talking about test plan. Test plan is a document that talks about the whole testing process. But now test case is different from test plan. And test case is a document that outlines the specific details of how an application should be tested. Think about test case as a document that outlines a specific details of how an application will be tested. It is not general now. Test plan it covers beyond test case. Test plan covers how we are going to be testing our application, who is going to be testing our application, the duration of our application, every other thing that we can imagine will be included in our test case, in our test plan. But in our test case, it's just a document that is going to outline what are we testing for. Okay, this is what I'm testing. This is how I'm testing it. This is what I'm testing. This is how I'm testing it. So test case is a document that outlines a specific details. Like it is very, very specific. Unlike test plan that is generic and broad and bring everything in. Test case is just specific details of how an application will be tested. Like it is very, very specific details of how an application will be tested. It consists of a set of steps or action to be performed on the system to verify. We have two things. When you are writing a test case, know that is either you are verifying or you are validating. I outlined those 2 points. Is that you are verifying or you are validating. To verify whether it meets the software requirements and the function as expected. Imagine they tell you that okay, if a user wants to log in, that user must have an existing account. I'm just citing an example. So if you want to write a test case, like you would need to verify if that user that is about to log in into that specific application have an existing account. So if the user does not have an existing account, then you can flag it. Okay, this test case does not pass. This scenario does not pass. It's failed. So it consists of a set of steps, like steps. Okay, how am I going to test? I'm going to make sure that I register to this application first. After I've registered to the application, and I'm going to make sure that okay, after I've registered to the application, then I'm going to go back to the login of the application. I'm just citing a scenario. And after when I get to the login of the application, then I'll try to log in with the details which I used in registering to the application. So if I'm able to log in successful, then I can say that okay, this test case has passed. And if I'm unable to log in, then I can say, okay, this test case has failed. So when you are writing your test cases are basically doing two things to verify if the application meets its requirements. Don't forget we've talked about FRS and FRD requirements. Like this is the requirement we want this application to meet. We want this feed to be mandatory. For example, like your name field should be mandatory. Like if you do not put name in that form, you should not be able to move on to the form. So if you want to test or you want to write a test case for that particular field, you will write a test case. I'm writing a test case to verify if this field is mandatory. Like if I fill this field, if I put my name in this field, will I be able to proceed, or will I be or will I what will the field flag a mandatory error that okay, this is mandatory, or there will not be error and I will not be able to fill the form. So that is what we require by verifying. And these test cases help to validate that the software behave correctly under certain condition. It helps us to validate that our software works, like validating. You ensure that okay, this is I'm checking if this thing is working, the way it's supposed to work under some certain condition. After you have checked for the positive condition, right? You are now validating other conditions. You have verified the actual condition, then you validate other conditions that might not be listed in the FRD. Like they are trying to negate it. Okay, if this field is a required field, you verify if the field is required field. Then you can verify if you can log in without, if you can input your name in the field without, you can sorry, you can verify again. The first scenario now is that I want to verify if I can input my name in the field. And another scenario is that okay, what if I did not input my name in the field? Will I get a require error? So that's about test case and test plan. And that's about verifying. That's about verifying and validating. Please, do you understand what test case is? Do you have any question before I move to the next slide? I'm very sorry. Do you have any question? Do you understand what test case is? Do you have any question?
No question.
All right, thank you. So I can proceed, right?
Yes.
All right. So before I proceed, who is going to explain what they understand briefly? What test case is? Anyone? Like a brief definition, a brief explanation of what test case is before we proceed.
Good evening.
Anyone? Good evening, Sadiq. Good evening.
Test case is the document that outlines the specific details on how application will be tested. and
Okay.
it's basically on two parts, like either you are verifying or you are validating.
Validating. Yeah.
Like you're going to be given, you're always going to be given an FRD or FRS for a um, particular test. So it's either they say, like you said, like a name should be validated before it can pass. So it's either you are verifying whether the name, can be, verified. Then you can now say, it has been, you can now add a test case on it
All
that
right.
is validated. Like, it's
All right.
okay.
All right.
Uh,
Thank you. Yeah. So that's basically what test case is a document that outline. It is a document that outline the specific details of how an application is going to be tested. So we'll go to when do we write test case? Yes, when do we write test case? According to the software development life cycle, software testing life cycle, sorry. According to the software testing life cycle, our test case comes right after our test plan. We have the requirement gathering, we have the test plan, we have the test case, we have the test execution, and we have the test closure. That's for the software testing life cycle. So, but in some cases, it is not like that. Some cases you have to write your test case before development, during development, and after development. Some special features might have been tested, deployed to production, and they might just ask you to draft a test case for it. I don't know if anyone understand what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that if basically the software development, software testing life cycle, our test case is supposed to come right immediately after our test plan. But we have some scenarios that let's just imagine now. Like we have this WhatsApp and everybody is using WhatsApp already. Now imagine there was a specific features that test case was not written for it, but it was tested before they deploy it. So they can still ask us to write test case for that particular feature. Of course, it is after deployment. People are already using it, and they can start us to okay, this is like a miss out feature, let us write test case for it. Sometimes, although it's not common, but sometimes you might be asked to in case of when you're working with an organization that does not really have enough documentation, but they have application out there, so they will just feel like okay, help us to do this document, help us to write test case for it. So we have before we develop our application at all, before our back end guys, front end guys, our engineers started writing code, we can draft our test cases. And how do we draft a test case before development? We are going to get don't forget, we are going to have our functional specification document, or maybe like a ticket or anything that will instruct us the same thing we are going to that is going to be provided for the developer. The developer is not is the same document that was going to be provided for the developer to develop that application is going to be provided for the QA also, because you are testing the application is developing. So you can write test case before you even develop that app. Before that app even comes to existence, you can start writing test cases for that. And this test case may be written even before the actual coding begins. That's before development, before it actually begins. This helps to clarify the product requirements and prepare for testing once development is completed. And the very I feel like this is the most effective form of writing test case, because if there is anything for you to clarify before they develop the app and give it to you to test, you will have clarified it while you are drafting your test cases. You are thinking about a scenario and you feel like, okay, this thing should not work this way. You will have discussed it with your product management and the developer, and everybody will have come to the round table, and you'll have reached an agreement of okay, let's remove this, let's add this before development. So it's not test case can be written before development, before they start writing codes at all. You can write your test case. And another time you can write your test case is during development. These test cases are written in parallel with development. As the developer is developing the app, you are also writing your test case. As each module of the application is being built, let's assume that there's a specific module that is being built, like maybe like a login functionality. Okay, the developer is done with the login functionality. They will give you, okay, this is the login functionality. So draft your test case against this login functionality. Then you can start, okay, you have seen what you want to test. So you can start writing your test case. Corresponding test cases are created and executed to verify functionality earlier and often. So, and another thing is after development, you know, I've said it earlier before, like this test case can also, some test case can also be written after development. Like the feature has been developed and the feature has been developed, but after it has been developed, it has not been released yet. Like they have developed the feature, you see what you want to test, you know what you want to test, but it has not been given to the users to be using. So they said this is it is like the common, it is common when validating a completed product or feature to ensure everything works together as expected before before deployment. This type of test case, the after development test case, will be common when you are trying to write a test case for like an application you are doing integration testing for. You know, this is, or yes, an integration testing when you're trying to check everything, or a system testing when you're trying to check everything, if everything is working before you give it to your users. So if you draft a test case when the application is ready, and it's you just want to be so sure that, okay, you're not giving your users some set of bugs or everything, you just want to test in that phase, so you can develop your test case. And sometimes, as I've explained earlier, some rare cases are some applications that are already being given to the users. Their users are already using this type of application, but they do not have proper documentation. Maybe for some reason, maybe before they develop, maybe when they were developing that application, there was no QA for it. Maybe they do not have QA departments, they don't have any form of documentation. Test case can also still be written for those kind of features. So we have three development phases where we can write our test case: before development, during development, and after development. Do you have any question before we proceed to the next class? Anyone? Any question? Anyone?
I have a question
Yes.
on before development, because
Yes.
I'm just wondering how, I understand how you were explaining, but I'm just wondering how is it going to be done, because although you said you're going to be giving FRD like what you're
Yes.
going to
Yes.
be testing, but the issue is that how do you now test before the development when they have not
No, you are not
when nothing has
testing.
been. Oh, okay, you have been
You
writing
know,
a test case. Sorry, writing a test case.
and you can write a test case before development. You can, because because you are trying to just verify and validate. Like it's going to be like you are imagining that those scenarios. I don't know if you get my point. You have your FRD, and your FRD is going to tell you that in this application we're about to be in this application that we want to be built, there's going to be a field called name. So you will in your test case, you will just try to imagine that there is a field called name, and that field name is going to be a required field. That is what is going to be given to the developer also. It's not as if the developer have anything to just build an application. I don't know if you get my point. That particular thing that will guide the developer to build the application and build it for you to test um, is that requirement also. You will also work with to draft your test cases. Now it's not as if you are testing, but you want to check. I can set an example for you. Um, Blessing Samuel, do you have a question? Sorry, I'm coming. Okay, this is a project I'm currently working on. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
All right. So this for this particular, I need to drag this. I'm coming. I need to drag this. So for this particular feature now, I wrote this test case before development, but I just executed this list of test case today. Like I just executed it today. So for this is like this screen. This is another screen. You can see what is the status. What status are you seeing here? So
Um,
can
I
you see
can
this?
Not
see.
yet tested.
Yeah.
Not yet tested.
Yes, yes.
So this particular test case, I wrote it with the functional requirements documents. This particular feature, it has not been built by developer. I get the same I get the same requirements the developer wants to use. I use it as a guide to draft my own test case also. In as much as you understand, that's why I said that as a QA, you need to understand your FRD very, very well. If you understand it very, very well, you'll be able to relate, like write test cases before development. You don't even need an up and running application before you write your test case. Blessing Samuel, please, can you ask your question?
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to ask, based on this development, before the during development and after development, is there a need that a particular project only need a particular development, like this app? It has to be before development. It has to have a test case before development, or a particular project can.
No, it depends on the workflow of the organization you are working with, yeah, or the application you want to test of the PO. Sometimes the PO might just ask for your test case even before the application comes. They'll be like, "Where is your test case?" Okay, we know we want to test. Where is your test case? So you have to get the FRD, study it very well, and draft those test cases. And sometimes they'll feel like, okay, this is application we want you to test. Give us your test cases. Why testing? It depends on who you are working with, Blessing. I hope that answers your question.
I'm sorry, ma. Your voice was breaking. I didn't hear anything you said.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
All right. I said it depends on the product team you are working with or the organization you are working with. Sometimes they might require for your test case before development. If they have give you the functional requirement documents, they will require for your test case. And sometimes they might ask you to write your test case after they're giving you what to test. Like they're giving you the application you want to test itself. They might, okay, test this application and give us your test cases. It actually depends on.
It depends on the client and.
Yes, it depends on the client and the organization and the development team you are working with.
Okay. But is there a possibility that this test case, all the test case is done within a project, a particular project?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Like, is there a possibility that a test case is drafted before development? So take to draft a test case for this project before development. Then, as it was going to, you have to do another one during development again, or the test case covers everything, even
If you are writing your test case for
if it was
before
before or
development,
during.
hello,
Yes.
can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Hello, Blessing.
We can hear you.
All right, okay, Victor, you can hear me. Okay, maybe it's
Hello?
maybe it's a network
Hello?
then. Okay, I think if you're writing your test case before development, right, you are saying that does that mean you are going to write another one during development? No, you're not going to write another test case during development. What you are going to do after the test case has been after the application has been developed is to execute your test case, and you might add. Maybe you feel like, okay, my test case is not enough. Like you might add few number of test cases while testing. You see some scenarios that was not in your test case before that you have written before development. You must add it to the list of your test case, but that does not mean you are going to start another set of test case. No, I don't know if you get my point, Blessing.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am,
yeah.
thank you.
All right, yeah. So do you have another question before we continue? All right, all right. So why do we write test case? Like why do we write test case? To verify software meets customer requirements. Like we are writing test case to make sure that, okay, this software that we're actually giving out, it actually meets the customer, our clients, it actually meets the requirements, and we are not missing out anything. To ensure functionality under specific condition. Now, for a functionality, there might be like a functionality is like, let's say, a login functionality. Now, we want to ensure that under specific conditions can be like, okay, login with valid email. log in with invalid email. So want to ensure that that functionality, it is working fine under some specific conditions. I want to be able to cover as many as possible scenarios we can to identify needed updates or improvements. Like if there is a need for us to improve in anything while you are drafting your test case, you might come across some things and you feel like, oh, this application is still not in total, like we are still missing out something. Like if there is a need for you to improve the application, you might just rely to your PO, you might just rely to anybody that is available, or the development team as a whole. While I'm drafting my test case, I feel like this particular field should be required and is not required. I feel like this field should be read only and is not read only. So we just want to identify and update the improvement of our application. And another thing is to improve test coverage. I feel like this is like the most important reason why we write test case, is just to ensure that we have adequate test coverage. Because for an application you are testing with test case, and an application you're not testing with test case, to some extent, if you are doing explorative testing, your test coverage is kind of limited. But if you have a well-structured test case that covers almost everything, 100% scenarios, then you can be so sure that your application is, you can be so sure that your application has covered, like your application is working the way it's supposed to work, and your testing and test cases has actually covered 100% of what it is expected to cover. To maintain consistency in testing, so that when we are testing, we are not missing out anything, like our testing is so consistent, and to assist during maintenance. So these are the reasons why we have our test cases. Out of numerous reasons, these are the reasons why we have our test cases. Now we want to go to the parameters of if writing an effective test case. But before we go to that, do you have any questions so far? Do you have any questions so far before I proceed to parameters of writing effective test cases? Anyone? Okay. So what is expected to be in our test cases? What is expected to be in our test cases if we want to draft our test cases? The first one is module name. Module name, like what are you testing? What is the name of that module? When we say module is like a smallest. How am I going to explain this module like this? Some applications have module, they have module names, and if it's like a smallest feature. I feel like module is like a smallest feature. Let me just try to, so I will not convince you. Let me just, okay. For the module name now, let's go to, I want to give us a practical example so we understand. So now we are on Google page now. So for a module, we can have this all as a module. We can have this. Okay, I'm on Bing, not Google. So let me just use Bing also. We can have this image section as module. Like the module name for this section will be image. The module name for this Copilot section will be Copilot. I don't know if you understand. So that is, the module name is going to be like the title that is being given to define a specific functionality. The title that we are being given to define a specific functionality. Like if we want to say like all, okay, why am I going so far? You all can see my screen. This file now in this Excel spreadsheet is like a module. The file, because it has some list of features under it, we can be like, okay, this file is a module. We can have edits, we can have view, we can have insert, format in that order. So that is a module, like a title that is used to define its particular functionality, not a feature now. Like it's beyond a feature, it's like a functionality now. Now we have the tester name, of course, the name of the person that is testing. What is the name? We are interested to know. We have the test scenario. Now, test scenario provide a brief descriptions to the testers, as in providing a small overview to know about what needs to be performed and the small features and components to be tested. Think about test scenario as test scenario is different from test description. Maybe I should explain this test description first before I go to the test scenario. The test description, right, is going to be like a generic, a condition that is kind of common to the whole module you are testing. Like that's, you are trying to describe everything as a whole. And test scenario is now, okay, let's assume I want to, practical example, let's assume I want to test a login functionality, My test case description would be like, okay, this test case is to test the login functionality. If user is able to log in, if user is able to log in successfully to the application using a valid email and invalid email. That's like a description. I'm trying to describe what I'm testing. Like I'm trying to describe the whole functionality I'm trying to test. But now in the case of test scenario now, I now want to verify if users can log in with a valid email. Now that is a scenario. Okay, it is a scenario. I'm trying to verify under the login. I'm trying to verify if user can log in with a valid email. That's a scenario. I'm trying to verify if user can log in with an invalid email. That's another scenario. I'm trying to verify if users can log in without password. That is another scenario. I'm trying to verify if users can log in with password. That is another scenario. So test the case description is kind of more generic, and test scenario is very small. Like is you trying to break that generic features into small particles. Like you're trying to break it small into small particles, like trying to tell us what you are actually testing for. Test case description is kind of more generic, and test scenario is like you trying to break it into smallest units. Please, do you understand test case description and test case scenario? Because sometimes it might be confusing. Please, do you understand it before I proceed with the rest of any question?
I think you need to explain more because it's confusing. Like they are like the same.
They are not the same.
It's like you are trying to expand, what you have said in the scenario, in the description. So I don't know. Maybe you can give us more details about it.
They are not the same. They are not the same. Okay.
I say they are like. I'm not saying they are the
Okay,
same.
they are like the same. Okay. Test case description now. We are trying to check the condition. This condition required to be checked for a given software, e.g., check if only number validation is working or not for an age input. Now, test scenario now. You are going to provide a brief You're going to provide a brief descriptions to the testers. Into like you're trying to let me just try to look for a better example that will be able to make us to understand. Okay, we have a login functionality. Can you hear me? Can anyone confirm you can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. You have a
Yes.
login functionality, or let's say, okay, let's say I'm trying to, don't let us use login. I'm trying to test this file. Can you see this file module? So I'm trying to test this file module. So if I want to write a test description, I'm trying to test everything that is under this file module. You see, when I drop this file module down, I'm having new, open, everything. So I will try to describe the whole concept of what I'm trying to test. Like I would try to describe it. Okay, this is me trying to test the file section to ensure that users can create, they can open, they can rename, they can move. Like, I'm just trying to describe everything I'm trying to do. Now, when it now comes to scenario, I will now come to, okay, let's say new. I want to test new now. Okay, I want to check if users can click on this presentation and it will present. I'm trying to check if users can click on this form templates gallery and it will pop up. And I'm trying to check that if this field is not read only, that is scenario. Like, you're trying to check each and every functionality one by one, those scenarios one by one. Description is you just trying to describe everything you want to test. Like, this is everything I want to test. You are trying to describe what you want to test, and you have to be more detailed. But scenario, you have to be so specific, like to this to that scenario you are trying to test. This, for example, now I'm trying to check if I can rename, if I can click on rename, and if user click on rename, if user can use number as a name and they'll be able to save. That is a scenario. Okay, if users can use symbols as a name and they'll be able to save, that is a scenario. If users can use any other thing as a name, and like, I'm just trying to break down my description into a small, like into a simple form. Like, the scenario will be carrying out, like when we are doing UI element testing. Don't forget, when I was saying, okay, check, maybe you can log in, maybe you can input a valid name, maybe you can input a name that is not valid. All those ones are scenarios. All those ones are scenarios. Why description will describe everything you want to test, like everything that your test case will want to cover. Do you understand now, or should I still explain? Any questions?
No, it's okay.
Do you understand now?
Yes, it's understandable.
Yes. So that is the difference between test case scenario and test case description. Just, when you are doing describing, you are trying to describe at least what you are testing for. Like, you are trying to be more detailed about it. But when it comes to scenario, you are trying to break it down to, okay, this is what I'll be checking for, this is what I'll be checking for, this is what I'll be checking for. So we have test case ID. Test case ID is just like a unique identifier assigned to every single condition in a test case. Like, your test case ID can be anything. Some organization have the naming convention for the test case ID, while some does not have. In that case, you are free to use anything. You can use TC 101, TC 102. Like, it's just like you are trying to, for every condition, for every scenarios, you are trying to have your test case, like TC 101, TC 102, TC 103. Just like you're trying to have your number. But in this case, you are trying to be more, how am I going to put it? In this case, you are trying to make it more unique, more unique. It's just like you're trying to have a normal number, like, okay, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, but now you are trying to make it more unique. And how can you make it more unique? You can use the name of the functionality you're about to test. Like, you can use anything, in as much as they do not provide a format for you. We have prerequisites or preconditions. Some people call it prerequisites, some people call it preconditions. So these conditions require to be fulfilled before they can start testing. This sometimes condition can be general to a particular feature, and sometimes condition can be specific to a particular scenario. When we're talking about conditions, okay, this is what you should have before you want to test. For example, before you can test my application, I'm just citing an example. Before you can test my application, you should have a stable network. Before you can test my application, you should have an iOS. You should have this iOS version. You should be on this environment. So you just have to state those preconditions that needs to be met before they can test. And sometimes when the preconditions is actually attached to a particular scenario. Sometimes some preconditions are attached to a particular scenarios, and sometimes it's kind of generic. Do you understand the preconditions? Anyone? Do you understand? Do you have any
Yes.
question? All right. Now we have the
Yes, that is.
test steps. No, now test steps is the step by step is a step-by-step, how am I going to put process? Let's say process of what we want to be checking for. Like write it. We are so detailed. Just imagine you want to test if a user can log in with a password that is correct. Now you have your test steps. What are your test steps? Number one, before the user, now you have to think like a tester now. Before the user can even try to log in, what is the first step you think the user should do? All right, so yeah, I need an answer. Before the
You
user
should
can be able to log in,
launch the app.
you should launch the app. Thank you. You should launch the app. So the first thing the user should be able to do is should launch the app. And after the user have launched the app, what are you expecting? Anyone? After the user have launched the
Input
app,
your
what are we expecting?
input your emails or password.
Even before you can input your email and password, after you have launched the app, you're expecting it to like the
To open
application should give.
the login page.
Yes, to open the login page, like there's a proper redirection, like you are on that page, you're on that page. So that's test steps. Test steps is like you're trying to, okay, you want to test a login functionality. Number one, launch the application or navigate to the application. Sometimes we write the URL in brackets. Okay, go to this URL. After you are in this URL, check if you can see the login page. Like check if there is a login page or if you are properly redirected to the login page. Now if you can see the login page, what else can we, before we can log in, maybe to an application that requires us with email and password. So what else can we write as our test steps? Anyone? Before we can say we want to, what else should come after? We have rights, go to the login page. We have rights, proper redirection, like
Impute credential, valid credentials.
yes, you can now impute your credentials. Now, if you have two, am I going to say if sometimes if it is like it requires you to use password and email, so you have to be so specific. Like your test step should be so detailed. Like number one, input a valid email, input a valid password, then you will, that's our test steps is. Just think about a test steps as maybe you are trying to, I'm just trying to explain further, right? Maybe you are trying to use your PC, the first thing you will do, even before you start using your PC, what is the first thing you will do? You want to use your personal computer now, you want to use it to do anything. But before you use your personal computer, like before you use it to do anything, like what is the first thing you will do? Oh
You
yeah,
you
now.
open it up and you
Switch
turn
it
it on.
on. Switch it on.
You will put it on.
Turn it on.
You will turn it on. So that is like a test step. Now the first step, I want to use my personal PC. The first thing I'm going to do is to turn my PC on. So after I've turned it on, then I will check. Some PC will require you to input your password. If it asks for my password, I will put it. Then I will be able to be on my PC home page. Then I can start using my PC. So test step is just, it has to be very detailed, and it has to guide the users. That even if someone that is not a software tester pick your test case and read your test steps, they'll be able to test the application seamlessly. So that is test steps. We have test data. Test data are the inputs to be taken while checking for a particular condition. Your test data is maybe you're trying to log in to an email field now. You are trying to log into an application that requires using your email. So your test data can be your email, like your actual Gmail that you want to use to test. Like that's your test data there. And you are trying to use an invalid email. Your test data can be abcd at example.com. So your test data are what are the actual thing you will use in testing your application. The actual thing you will use in testing your application. Don't let us forget all these are parameters of test case, of writing an effective test case. It's at least it must be included in your test case. you might see some test case, they might be more detailed than this, but at least these are the basic parameters that should be in your test case. We have expected results. Now, expected result is after I've test, if I want to test an application if I want to test a login functionality, let me go back to that login functionality. After I've input a valid email according to your test steps and I've input a valid password, then I click on enter. I'm expected that I am logging to the application. That is what I'm expecting. Expected result is what you are expecting the application to do. I'm expecting this application to do this. So that is your expected result. And your actual result is what the application actually do after you have tested. Your expected result is, I'm expecting that if I click on this URL, it should navigate me to the home page of the URL. That is my expected result. Sometimes my actual result might be different from my expected result because maybe when I'm trying to test, I click on the URL and I'm not being navigated to the home page of the URL. I'm not being navigated to the home page of the URL. That is some application use a token for validation. Yes, some application use a token for validation. Yes, they does. So I'm just trying to use this email and password because I think it's kind of common in our application lately. So that is our expected results and actual results. Do you understand expected results and actual results before we proceed? Please, do you understand the expected result and actual result before we proceed? Anyone? Any question? Any
Yes.
question?
No question for me.
Okay. All right. So our status, the status of our test, right? I still have a slide for status, and we have the comments also. The comments is going to be like the remark on what you are testing for. Like sometimes this comments field is not kind of necessary. You can add it, you cannot add it. It might be like, okay, this is what I'm testing, but if we want this application to be more better, we can decide to add this, we can decide to add that. So that's why we have the comment field. So these are what is expected to be in your application, or in your test case rather, when you're trying to draft your test case. You have your module name, your tester name, your test scenario, your test case description, the prerequisites, the precondition, the test steps, the test data, the expected result, the actual result, and status. So now let's talk more about our status. But before we talk more about our status, I want anyone to explain to us, like, what are the parameters we're expecting to see in our test case? Anyone? Can someone just explain to us what are the things we're expected to see in our test case? I love it when people voluntarily talk, but you just want me to call names, right? Princess.
Yes.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah.
Yes, can you please explain to us or list some things we're expected to see in our test cases?
Okay, for our test case,
Yes.
expected to see the first one is the module name.
The module name.
Yes, the first one is the module name. We also see the name of the test.
The name of the tester.
The tester, sorry. Name of the tester. The test scenario, the test
scenario,
description,
test description.
the test case ID, which can be anything. You can say
Yeah.
TC1, TC2.
Yeah, test case ID.
We have the test steps.
Yes, test steps.
The test data.
Test data, yes. All
The first
right.
one was expected results and actual results, and then you mentioned status.
All right. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay. So, Lillian. Okay, Blessing, do you have a question? You can go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. I have a
Okay.
question. What's the
Okay.
difference between a test case and a test plan?
What do you say?
What's the difference between a test case and a test plan?
The difference between a test case and a test plan.
Yes.
Okay. So please who want to answer Blessing question before I answer. Anyone? What's the difference between a test case and a test plan? Oh yeah, now. So we want to assume that all of us don't understand the difference between a test case and a test plan. Okay. Emmanuel, please, are you talking?
Yes,
All right.
I think a test case is one of the two types of test plan, Abby, if I'm not mistaken.
A test case is what?
Okay, is one of the two types of test techniques.
Okay. Okay. So will that be all? All right. Okay, Blessing. As we said last week, right? And everyone, a test plan is Samuel, please, do you want to talk? Or you want to ask a question?
I want to talk.
Do you want to ask a question?
Yes,
or
I
you
want to talk.
Do you want to ask a
Yeah.
question or you want to explain?
I want to answer the question she asked about the text case and the test plan.
Okay. All right.
Okay, my understanding, the text plan is a document you write before the beginning of any development of an application or a software or an site. So the text
Okay.
plan contains the requirements, things, and all what is going to be inside the application you want to develop. This is the test plan. The test plan is what you share with your client, and you guys agree on. And there's a sign beneath it. Okay, I agree with these things. These are the things I'm expecting in my application when it's being deployed or when it's being given to me. And the test case is a report you write when you are developing the application. This is the report to confirm, oh, in every of what is in the test plan, is it inside the application? Are we following the test plan according to what we say we're going to give to the customer? Is this, and this is like or a report that, checklist things that is inside the test plan, and also testing for improvement or testing for error to meet the requirement of the client. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So I just want to say that test plan generally is beyond us testing for requirements, right? We talked about test plan last week, and test plan is like a document that entails how an application will be tested and every other thing that will be performed during the process of testing that application. Test plan is like we're planning for, okay, we want to test what are we testing for? Okay, who are those people testing? How many people do we need to carry out this test? Okay, what is the in scope? Like as I've explained last week, right? What is the in scope of this future we're about to test? Okay, what are we not going to be testing at all? What types of testing are we going to do? Are we going to be doing a functional testing? Are we going to be doing a non-functional testing? Are we going to be doing performance testing or anything? What are the things we are going to be? Okay, what are the risks? Test plan is kind of broad. Test plan is going to cover the whole testing phase. The whole testing phase, like from the beginning of your testing. Test plan is going to talk about the beginning of your testing to the end of your testing, because it's going to tell, okay, this is when we are going to suspend this testing, this is when we are going to exit this testing, this is when we are going to stop this testing. Test plan is going to is like a document that is going to tell of course, maybe the PO, the clients, and any other person. It is a broad document that's going to tell them how a testing is going to be carried out and what is going to be like the duration. We have the duration in the test plan. Test plan is broad than test case. Test case is limited to your future. When you are trying to write a test case now, you're not trying to tell me the number of testers that is testing. You're not trying to tell me when you are going to stop testing. You're not trying to tell me when this is the outscope. I cannot even be seeing your outscope features, like what you're not testing for in your test case is not part of what you're not trying to introduce the application to me again. No, test case is just like a document that is going to guide you on what you want to test. It is very specific, like it's a step-by-step document that's going to tell you, okay, this is what I want to test and this is how I am going to test it. Blessing, do you understand?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Understand.
Do you understand the difference between, you can go back to the last video of test plan and you can check this test case. Test case and test plan are two different things and they are two different phases. And beyond us just trying to have our future and our requirements in our documents, in our test, beyond us trying to having our futures and our requirements in our test plan, right? We are going to check for other things. This is not us just introducing the app. No, we are still going to the weeks, everything. Test plan is like you trying to plan for the whole testing phase of the application. Why test case is limited, it's kind of limited to what you are testing for. So do you understand now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
All right, does anybody have any question? Does anybody have any question? Does anybody have any other question? All right, so let's go to the, okay, before we proceed, right? Yeah, I want to ask a question.
Is it just me or I stopped hearing anything?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, my PC went off. Sorry for that. So I join with my phone now. So before we continue, right, I want to ask another question. So who can explain to us the difference between test scenario and test description? So we're so sure we understand. Difference between test scenario and test description. Anyone? All right, Victor, can you help us with that? Victor. Please, can you hear me? I need to confirm if you guys can hear me. Anyone can just unmute and
Yes,
can you hear
ma'am.
me?
I can see you. Mhm.
Sure, please, can you hear me? Sure, you guys can hear me. I don't know
Yes, we
if my
can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
okay. All right, thank you. So, Victor, please, can you help us with the difference between test scenario and test description? All right, can anyone else help us with the difference or what to understand by test scenario and test description? Like anyone?
Hello.
Yeah, Sadiq, yeah.
A test scenario is a case where you are being provided, like you are testing for a brief description of a um, particular module. Like maybe you are giving you are testing for like login. What are the drop downs and all those things that you are testing for. Provide a brief description to the tester. Then
A,
why the
a brief
description?
description. Okay.
Yeah, to the tester, like we are giving a brief description, like maybe of that particular module you are testing. While the description is the condition where that requires that for you to check, a proper check on the given software. Like maybe you are checking for a number or age input or maybe if the input is working or the age is working or maybe the particular this thing like module is working. That's the
Okay.
difference between the scenario and the description.
Okay, so Nick, I think you got it right, but I think there is a missed up, right? Yeah. Like a test description is when you're trying to give a general details of what you are trying to test for, and a test scenario is when you're trying to give like a specific details. I think you exchange it for each other. Samuel, you raise your hand.
Yes, I
Samuel.
did.
Okay, all right.
Yes. So from what you've been saying lately and from what I understand, test scenario is the idea of what you are testing.
Yeah.
It could be the functional features of the application you are testing. That's the test scenario. In which way would a user think? And I want to, think like the user. In different scenario, you test, okay, is this one okay? Is this one right? The functional testing, is it fine? Is this login working fine? Even if I use another number, I use another thing to log in, will it log in? That's
Yeah.
the test scenario.
Yeah.
And for the description, it tells you in what way do you want to test that scenarios. In what way are you testing on Chrome, or are you testing on another different browser?
No.
Okay, that does not explain it.
No, it does not.
Okay, I think I stand to be corrected.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. I love your first explanation. Like that one was right. But thank you very
Okay, but the second one is not given.
Yes, thank you. So princess.
Yeah, so let me explain it the way I understand it. I want to use Zoom as an example, as a module. So if we're testing Zoom as a module now, the test description is describing everything inside Zoom. The mute, the starts video, participants, chat, everything is describing everything in general. Then the test scenario is testing each of these things inside Zoom, one by one. If I touch the mute button, will it mute me?
Okay.
If I unmute, will it unmute me? If I raise my hand, will it show? All those kind of things, one by one. Different.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so Samuel, you can see that is the scenario, the description rather, is not like basically the environment you are testing on. The description is like you're trying to give us the details of what you want to test. Like you're trying to give us the general details of what you are trying to test. Like everything, you're trying to be more details. Okay, I'm trying to check this login functionality. Okay, this test case covers the login functionality of this application to ensure that if user login, they can log in successfully, or they are trying to describe, like you're trying to describe everything you will be checking. But when it comes to scenario, now you're trying to be more specific. Okay, in this scene, what will happen? It's just like you're trying to write a movie. Like, I don't know if you can write, if you have people that write drama or scripts here. If you're trying to narrate the story, like you're trying to narrate the whole story, like, okay, I have a movie now. Okay, this is how the whole story wants to be. Like, there's going to be a rich man, and the rich man is going to have a wife, blah 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 blah. Like, we're trying to describe that movie. We're not trying to break it down into acts and scenes. Like, okay, at one scene one, in the first scene, we are going to have the rich man who will be sitting. Do you guess now? So now the test description is going to describe everything you want to do. Now your scenario is now going to be you breaking that stuff down. Like you will try to break it down. You will try to break it down. Do you understand now? Do we understand the difference between test scenario and test description now? Before we proceed.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So I want to ask another question, right? So I want to ask another question. I'm very sorry for my PC. I'm trying to get back on the PC so we can so we can continue. Sorry, please. I need to. Please give me a minute. I'm trying to come back to the application on my PC. Okay. So before that, who can explain what they understand by test data while I'm doing that? Test data. So what is test data? Anyone? Lillian, please, what is test data? Lillian.
Good evening.
Good
Please,
evening.
it's not been long I joined the class, so I'm still trying to understand what they are saying. I just joined from the beginning.
You did not join from the beginning. Where did you join? Like, what was I saying when you joined?
Yes.
What was I saying when you joined?
I joined when you were asking for test description and that.
Recording in progress.
Okay.
So
All right. So does anyone want to tell us what they understand by test data? Test data. Anyone? All right, Princess.
Hello?
Okay. So test data is every input or queries that you will make during the course of testing. Let's say if you are testing an email text box, an email address is data. It is test data for that one.
Yes. Yeah. So Samuel,
Hello,
you raise your hand.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you, Victor.
I'm so sorry. I was speaking. I didn't know I muted myself.
Okay.
The first time you called me, I was just talking and I was shouting. I'm so sorry about that.
Oh, no
I
problem.
didn't know. I just found out that it was me. I muted myself on top of the speaking.
Oh, all right, no problem. So, Samuel, do you want to tell us what you understand by test data?
Yeah, I think I don't want to say somebody has said what I want to say, but I'll still say it anyway. So for data, we have data inputting. For every data we input, we test if it meets the requirements in terms of the password in characters. In maybe you have a name as a password, that's the data of a person, the data of the user. If that data matches the requirement of the application or the site you're using.
So for test data now, according to you, I need to be so sure I'm getting it right. Like you
Okay.
mean that if I'm trying to test for a name of a user, or let me say a name field, and I input the name of that user, so that's a test data. Is that what you mean?
No, look at it. I said the inputting of, like, okay, if you have a login page, login page.
Yes.
Yeah. So the input of the user name, email addresses, and everything must meet the requirement in terms of if I put password as my username, password 123 at gmail.com, will it accept it? I'm sure that's the test data.
Okay. So test data is like if you when you try to input something to a particular field to check if it will accept it or not.
Yes, yeah, meeting the requirement of that.
Of whatsoever scenario you are trying to test for.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you very much. Victor, I guess you want to say something. Yeah,
Is that wrong or right? Please, I stand to be corrected.
No, like I don't really get what he's trying to say, but test data is when you are Samuel,
Yes.
test data is when you're trying to 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 test a particular field. So imagine now for a scenario when you're trying to check an email field now. If you input your email address to that field, that email address you want to input is a test data. If you are trying to check a numeric only field and you input ABCD, that ABCD you input is a test data. If you are trying to check for like a password field and you input some set of characters as your password, those set of characters you input is a text data. So test data can be anything. Maybe you are trying to check this thing can accept this. Whatever you want to test your application with, whatever you want to test that field with, that feature with, that scenario with, is your test data.
Okay. I think I get it better. It's just me. This is the same thing I'm saying, but you're not just getting me. I know how to explain it better now with your own
Yes.
explanation. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Sorry, please, can you take that again?
Yeah, please take it again. I didn't get that.
Test data, right?
Yes.
Test data. Yes. Test data is like the input you are trying to use in checking your field, like in checking your field, or in checking your application if it's working. For example, now, if you are trying to test like a login page and you have a name, you have an email and password. So imagine you want to test that page with taiobolatife@gmail.com. That taiobolatife@gmail.com is like a test data for that email field. So if I'm trying to use some set of, maybe I'm trying to do a negative test and I'm trying to put a non-existing email, that non-existing email is a test data for that field. So anything you are trying to check your application with, like anything you're trying to test with, okay, with my application asset 1 to 10, you type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That is a test data. Do you understand?
Yes.
All right. So yeah, Victor, do you have anything you want to say? There was a time you raised your hand.
Yeah, I wanted to contribute to this, and well, you have said it all. Who am I to question the authority?
No, you can actually add to it if you have anything you want to say.
Yeah, it's no difference to what I wanted to say. No difference. Yeah.
All right. So I just want us to explain the preconditions. What do you think are the preconditions? Anyone? When we're talking about precondition or prerequisites, what do we think we mean by, in our test case, we should have a precondition. So what are the preconditions? Anyone can explain that for us before we can proceed? Anyone? I explained this stuff for preconditions and prerequisites. Okay, Victor, now, please, what is precondition?
Okay, preconditions could be seen as specific conditions or requirements that we are supposed to test in a test plan. A precondition can come
Test case.
In a test case, I mean to say. Specific conditions, specific requirements, specific specific thing that you have to test. Like if we are to test using a valid credential. So the precondition.
Okay, the precondition will
now be the instruction, what you should test.
No.
For example, the system setup or user permissions.
Okay, your examples are kind of in line. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Sadiq, what are preconditions?
Yeah. Preconditions are the required input to be fulfilled before the start of the test process. Like for instance, for example, is if you are required, like you should log into a page. What are the things like you launch an app, what are the things you need to input? Like assuming now you give an instance like okay, when you want to on your system, what are the things you do first? Like definitely you have to put it on. Then when you put it
That's
on,
test steps. That's test steps.
okay, okay.
Yes.
Okay, I think condition that requires that to be fulfilled before
Before you can
you start
carry out
your
a test.
test. Yeah.
All right. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Princess.
Okay, so I think preconditions mean before the test. So
Yes.
before you start the test, there may be certain things required. It can be general or specific to a particular test scenario. So
Yes.
let's say before you start the test, you must have internet connection first.
Yes.
That's a precondition for it can be the general one.
General
So if you
one.
are saying for a specific test scenario, let's say before you log in, you must have a valid email address. That's another specific precondition.
Okay. So thank you very much, Princess. So preconditions are those things, those conditions you must meet before you test your applications, right? Like as she has said, and I've said it the other time when I was trying to explain preconditions. I said, just imagine my application. Before I test my application, I should have an iOS version of something like this. Maybe that's the operating version my application can work on. I should have a stable internet connection. I should have the URL to the application, of course. So those are the preconditions that, okay, before you can say you want to even test at all. So what are the necessary things that must be put in place before you can test? And sometimes it might be specific to a particular scenario. Maybe you're trying to check a password scenario now. Does that user even have a record in your database? Has that user even create an account because of having a password? So like we now have it like, okay, like before this user can log in into this account or can input a password into this account field, the user must have successfully registered into our account. Okay, imagine you're trying to log into an application you have not registered to, like it will flag an error. So if you are now trying to test and login functionality, like the precondition for the old functionality should be like, okay, before user can even log into our account or to our system, to our software, the user must have registered, like successfully registered into our account. And before the user can successfully register, if you are trying to test a registration functionality, the user must have a specific set of data. For example, a valid mail. The user must have valid mail. The user must have a password, must provide us some set of data for us before we can even accept that user. So that is what we understand by preconditions. So do you have any other question before we proceed to status? So these are test status. Yes. So we have pass. And how do we say that our test case has passed? How can we give but before we have passed, let us take not yet tested, not executed first. I was trying to show you one of my test cases I was running lately, right? Okay, so you can see I have tested this application, although I have a lot, so I've not filled my actual results. Don't mind me. So I have tested this application now. So you can see now the test scenario. Don't mind me. Let me just correct this. It's copy and paste that I used to. So my first test scenario is that to verify a master screen name expenses type is implemented is the module setup. Like I want to check if that screen is there. Like that's like a scenario. So when I log in into the application, I see that okay, this thing is there. Then I passed this test because it is there. I have tested it. I am so sure that it is there. That is when you can pass your test case. You cannot pass your status of your test case cannot be passed when you have not tested. The status will be not yet tested, not yet tested, or not yet executed, or not executed. It can either be not yet tested, like I've not tested this scenario. Yes, I've not tested this scenario, or not executed. I've not executed this test. So we have pass. Pass is going to come when you have test and you are sure that the expected results really meet with your actual results. Like when what you're expecting to see a new screen, and of course when you check, your new screen populates. So that is when we have pass and not yet tested. So when your test fail, right, for this place now, I'm trying to verify the date field is visible, right? But when I check, the apply date is not visible. So I need to fail this test. I'm just trying to let us know, see a practical example. For this year, I'm trying to verify if past date selection, that if a users use a past date, like today's date now, and I want to fill that particular date field, right? And I want to use a past date, like maybe like yesterday, or even like last year. That field, it is not supposed to allow me to save. That is the requirement. It is stated in the requirement. So I was able to save with a past date field. So field accepts past dates and no warning message. So I failed this particular test. So when you execute your test, you can now update your status. But when you are writing a test case when you are writing a test case when the feature has not been deployed, or when it has not been built at all, then your test case status should be not yet tested. For this particular module, this feature has not been built. So you can see that all the status here is not yet tested, not yet tested, not yet. You cannot see any pass, fail, or anything on this screen. It's not yet tested because this particular feature has not been built. It's still with the developer. So I just write this list of test case with the requirements. So when you are writing your test case and you have not tested, you have to put it in not yet tested or not executed. When you have test and it's actually working, you have to change your status from not yet tested to pass. When you have checked and it's not working, you have to change your status to fail, from not executed to fail. And sometimes we have blocked. What does blocked mean? Like if you're trying to, okay, let me show you. I feel like there were some test cases that I blocked today. Okay, yes. Okay, I was trying to check this currency field, right? And this currency field is completely missing on the screen. Like it was stated that there should be a currency field, but the currency field is completely missing on the screen. So there is no way I can test other things that I blocked, that were blocked here, are because that currency field were not executed. So everything here is to check for that currency field. Why is it blocked? I will have tested it. It's not like it's not yet tested. I will have tested it if it was available. But in this scenario, it is not provided by the developer. So because the particular test is failed, like it has this particular test that is for me to ensure that the currency field is there has failed. So every other thing that is related to the currency field is blocked because it's not provided. I will have tested, and when I'm saying that, okay, we have block test cases. Just think about a scenario that when you're trying to carry out your test cases, you're trying to implement your test cases, right? And you were not able to test that scenario because something was not implemented by developer. You have to block it, or maybe because that feature is not yet provided, you have to block it. There are some that was blocked because they were kind of related to another feature. They have to block it because there's no way you can test it. So it will have to be blocked. And this in progress and skipped most of the time is not commonly used, but this 1, 2, 3, 4 are majorly used. In progress is maybe when you are testing, when you're testing, you just set your testing. If I want to test this particular stuff, I don't even have it in this particular test case. You can just have in progress, and you can just set it to, okay, I'm testing this. What are you doing? I'm testing this in progress. So when you are done testing, then you can change it from, okay, after you have done, when you are done testing, is it passed? Is it failed? Now skipped is different from blocked. Skip is like you intentionally, it's not as if the future is not provided, or it's not as if anything is delaying you from testing, but maybe because of the deadline, and there are some test cases that they are of low priority, they may ask you to skip all the low priority test cases, like just go to the one that can affect the future. So you are intentionally skipping them. So that's when you just have a status and you put it skipped. Most of the time we don't really use this skipped, right? But sometimes it might be required. If they ask you to just give us the test that is of high priority. Go and run your test cases of high priority. So you are going to run those test cases that can affect the core functionality. Imagine now they are asking you to test something, and you're trying to check something that might not really affect the functionality of the application, and they want to deploy the application to client very fast. So you might be asked to skip those scenarios, those little scenarios that might not really affect the functionality of the application. So we have pass, we have failed, we have not executed or not tested, we have block, we have skip, and we have in progress. So those are the status. Don't forget, these are the status. When I get to this status, I say that I'm still going to explain status. So these are the status of your test cases. Like when you come to the status section, those are the status you can have. So do we understand? Do you have any question? Do you understand? Do you have any question before we do some? Do you understand? Any question from anyone? Should I ask my question? If I ask my question. All right, Becca.
Good evening, ma.
Good evening.
In a case whereby your status of the field status, right? You now reported it to the developer that you have a field status, and they now work. Can you now change that status to resolved or closed?
I don't understand. Your testing status?
No, for example, you are testing an app or a website,
Okay.
but you have a failed test case.
Test case, yes.
Status there is registered that failed, right? So when you now report your bug, they worked on it. Can you change that status to resolved or closed?
Are you talking about the bug status or your test case status?
The test case status. Or will it be failed even when it has been resolved?
You will have to retest. When it has been resolved, you will retest. Then if you have retest and you are so sure that it's working, you will pass it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. You don't have close or resolved in test case. If it is bug now, I know bug life cycle. Yes, you can start changing your status. But for test case, is it that if you're the developer that, I don't know if anybody's developer here, but most of those developers, they are liars. They will tell you they have fixed something and they have not fixed it. So you have to confirm. You have to be so sure that, okay, what they say they are fixed, okay, it has been fixed and it is working fine. Peace.
I think this class is recorded. Developers will listen to it and come for you.
What do you say?
I
Okay, the developers will come for me. They know they are liars. They know. Peace, please.
Hi. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Okay, I have a question.
Right.
What if you are testing an application and is a login application, login feature. And then for you to be able to, sign up feature, and then for you to be able to finish the sign up process, an OTP is sent to your mail. Now, in a situation whereby you minimize the app to go and get your OTP, And then coming back to the app, the section have started all over again, and a new OTP has been sent to your email. And then you reach out to the developer to complain. And the developer is like, it's your phone that is killing the section. It's not how the app works. Yes. And then
don't mind.
You try to use that device.
Okay.
Actually, it works on that device. Now, does it mean that any user with this particular device that the section keeps starting all over, like we keep encountering this issue, or is there something they are likely to do just to, like, carry this particular device along while trying to implement their code in the app? I don't know. In that situation, as a tester, what would you do?
So can I answer before you come?
Yes, you can.
Yes.
Okay, I think what we'll do in this situation is to also raise it as a new bug. Because the developers, they should also make sure that it works in all the expected Android or iOS phones. So if it has not met the criteria for a particular Android or iOS that we have been mentioned that it should be working on, then it's a bug. Send it back to them. They should treat it. Yes, it's working on this, but no, it's not working on this. So most of the time, you have that kind of crash with developers. Yes, this is working. They will say, no, we have done it. It's supposed to. Then you test it with different Android and iOS. Then you can raise it as a fresh bug and say, yes, it passed on this, but no, it didn't pass on this.
All right. Yeah, thank you very much, Victor. Peace. I want to ask this question. Hope is not that developer that asks you to go and use a specific device. Or you just pick any device.
Is working, is not working, is working, is not working.
Okay.
So we now decided to try with that device. So it worked on those other devices, but did not work on this particular device.
Okay,
so
you have to.
They now result from the phone, like the model of the phone, the making of the phone that is killing the section.
Yes, you have to log it as a bug, then. Like, just raise it as a new bug. Like, let me tell you something. One thing about QA is that just let it be documented that when you are testing, you see this thing. Do you get my point? So it will not be like,
yes,
maybe after they have deployed to production, they will not come back and say, QA did not test, QA did not test. You will be able to defend what you did because you know that you actually tested it and you saw it and you complained. So if they now say that, oh, there was a ticket for this thing, it was not fixed, it is their fault. They will shift the blame from you. Anything you are trying to test, and don't trust developers, please. I'm going to developers, they are your friend, but don't trust them. Number of times they'll say that
recorded, Mal.
don't trust developer because they will not come for them. Like, they will not come for them more. Like, in the real sense, everything will come back to the QA. Like, they feel like, quality people did not test. Where are the testers? Don't just trust them. There was a particular time I was trying to test an application, and the developer was asking me to go and use a specific device. And I was like, why will you be telling me what to do when it was not even stated in the requirements? Do you get my point? Because they know what they did. It's not as if they did not know. They know. But they just don't want to give themselves some extra effort to fix a bug, because sometimes it might take them days to fix a specific bug. So you just feel like, well, if this thing is working here, let's just move on. So just try to document it. Just try to save it somewhere. At least when they are saying that this thing is not working. And some application does not even work on some sets. I explained this in our earlier class, right? Some application does not work on some set of browsers. Like, if you want to open it, they will notify you that, okay, this application is more of this browser friendly, so we advise that you open it on this browser, because they have tested it and it was reported by the QA that if you open it on this browser, it will not work. So for that kind of application you're testing, if it's something they cannot fix, when they launch it to their users, they can kindly advise their users not to use that device. I don't know if you get my point. If they were unable to fix the bug, yes, so they can just advise the users, like, okay, when you want to use this application, don't use this specific device because it's not kind of friendly on this device. So just try to raise it for them. They can treat it that way.
All right, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. All right, yeah, do you have another question? Do you have another question? So this is the end of our slide, right? Today we talk about test case, what test case is, why do we have test case, what are the stages or phases of test case, and what are we checking for? All right. So should we have a classwork or we should call it a day? Should we have a simple classwork or we should call it a day? We still have some minutes left. Majority carry the vote, right? Should we have a classwork? No, like you don't want.
Hello?
Sam, hello.
Yeah, I think we should just do a recap of today's class so that those of us that joined late can catch up on some things we missed.
Why do those of us join late? Why do those of us join late? Okay.
We have tried for today, except you are going to do practical.
We have tried for today, except we should do practical. Okay. All right. So those of us that are join late, let's just Shamaka.
Yes, please. Hello, everyone. Please, can we have access to the slides? I really need the slides so I can study later.
Yeah, they will send the slide to you later, right? They'll send the whole slides. The organizer will send the whole slide to you later.
On what platform? Is it on Discord or
Yes, possibly on Discord.
Can
Okay.
always check the YouTube.
I request
And you can,
I
possibly on
requested just slides and I haven't gotten it. That's why I'm asking.
You requested for what?
I requested for the previous slides, the slide for the previous classes. And I
Yes,
think
I don't know when they are sharing the slide, but possibly they will share it.
because I
But
didn't
you can always watch on YouTube, right? You can always get pause when you are watching on YouTube. You can always pause if you want to jot something down. You can always do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So do we have any other question? All right, can we just do a quick classwork then? Like let's try to classwork. Let's write test case to test a login functionality. I feel like I've used more of scenario of login. The login functionality field have email and password. So you can have like 2 to 3 scenarios or 4. So we can be so sure we understand what test case means. And for those of us that join late, we can go and see the video on YouTube, and so we can have something practical to do. For those of us that join late, we can check YouTube for later. And for those of us that joined the class earlier, so let's pick it up, test case. We might still have a whole task on this test case, so let's just get ourselves familiar with what we're about to do. So you want to write your test case, just have your test title, your test case description, your test, this one is not needed. This one is not needed. Your preconditions and your module. Let me quickly explain this thing, right? If you are trying to design a test case, you will find a numerous design out there. Like it's a free word, shall put what is expected. But for me, I like putting things that I know that they are generic and I'll not be using them more often. I love to put them up. And for things that I know that it will be so specific for, like this test case ID, this module, I put this module here to keep track of what I'm doing. I'm still going to put it up. But I currently put it here because I want to keep track of what I'm doing. I don't want to lose the name. I want to use it to keep track. But this test case ID, I know my test case ID will call my test scenario, my test steps, my test data, my expected result, my actual results, and status. Like I put them on this straight line like this. And all these ones that I know that's okay, is kind of more generic, I will put them up. Do you understand? Anyone? Do you understand what I'm trying to explain, please?
Yes, we do. How I do.
Okay. So that's how we try to, I try to, Becca. Becca, you can unmute. So
Sorry,
your
my
hands is
joined late. So I have a question here.
all
In
right
a
now.
case where I test the responsiveness of a particular feature, what will be your test data?
Not compulsory. It's not every test must have data. Oh.
Okay.
Becca, it's not every test that will have data. You can even check my test data field save. I've not even feel it. Although this testing have test data, but I've not feel it. But it's not every test that will have test data. Peace.
Okay, is there any actual result that works like as expected? Like you have
No,
expected
it's
outcome
a
and
it's a
actual
bad
outcome.
it's a bad practice. It's a lazy how do you used to call it? It's a lazy practice. Do you get? You are just trying to cut
Yes, I
corners. Yes, you're just trying to cut corners. The expected results should be explicit and your actual results should be detailed as well. As expected. Although you can write it, but it's not really advisable and is not advisable. So do you have another question? Are we doing the tax or we should call it a day?
What's the tax?
Like I'm just trying to write a test scenario, or I just want you to draft a test case, like a simple test case, or it's going to be taxi, like taxi.
Can you leave it for us
Let's call
as
it a
tax?
day.
We should call it a day. Everybody's saying we should call it a day. Blessing say we should call
We
it
are
a
all
day.
right.
Yes, everybody's tired. I understand. So please, we can go over this video again. For those of us that are coming late, we can go over it again on YouTube, right?
Are we
So
So
expecting tax this week?
I have something to say. Oh.
please, you can talk. You can talk. Are we expecting
Okay,
this tax this week? Possibly, Victor.
okay. Exactly the question I want to ask. Because if you don't have tax now, probably on Friday we'll have a tax to do. Because promotion is necessary, man.
Yes. they will have tax. Don't worry. And our tax, it will be. Hey, let me just add this. The last tax we did, right? We tried, but some of us are adding font color, font size. Those one are not UI elements. I don't know. I need to correct that. I feel like I saw it in few. Like you're adding font color, font size, font style. They are not UI elements. Like if you want to check a particular font color, like for this Zoom now, this is a Zoom text that I want to check the font color. So it must be specific to an element before you can say you want to check the color. I don't know if you get my point. So they are not elements. It's not like a best practice for us to be adding font color, font style, font size as an UI element. So you can go and study our UI elements. You can go back to that demo QA site that we used that day to understand our UI elements better. So that's it. So thank you very much, everyone. Do you have any question before we call it a day? Any question from Princess, please?
Okay, so from the site we used for the classwork, the demo QA.
Yeah, the demo QA.
So aside the elements part that is on top, I went down to the part that had the frames, images, and I saw something called accordion.
Okay.
So I want to ask if accordion is actually a UI element because I added it to my assignment.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, do you have any other question? All right, so thank you very much, everybody. So if we are going to be having our promotional tax this week, it will be dropped on the LMS channel. And let's check our LMS channel for that. And if you have any question, you can reach out to me personally on Discord channel. And you guys are not even more interactive on the channel. You can drop links if you are reading anything that you feel like you're trying to read anything other can learn from. It's a learning platform, right? You can drop it on the channel, others should pick it up. You should try to carry others along also. You should try to be more interactive on the channel. And and that will be all. So see you next class. Bye.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Bye.